Thanks so much, Donna, and thanks everybody for joining us. I'm loving this new time, so thank you for the change. So the armor and protection of living free of emotion. So as always, perfect leading up to the talk. I always get inspiration right as I get ready to speak on the way here and leading up to the intro and everything. Judy had the reading from 2nd Romans about not conforming to the ways of this world. And one of the ways that we've completely lost ourselves in the ways of this world is that we've identified as emotion. Donna talked about how we train and rear our children. We've also supported children in their upbringing, identifying them as emotions. Feel your feelings. You should feel your feelings. Express yourself. And what happens is we unknowingly start to harden an identity around feeling and emotion to where we actually believe our identity is our emotion. Our core identity is our feelings, and we can't differentiate between feelings and emotions that are temporal, and that fly all over the place, that are erratic, that are completely inconsistent and undependable, and ourselves. We don't differentiate between the two because we've colluded them in our upbringing, in our conformity. Everybody around us is believing that our emotions go this way, then I must go that way. Our emotions fly off the wall this way, that I have to fly off the wall that way. So that's a perfect introduction to how we want to address this topic of armor and protection of being free of emotion. And again, nowhere am I saying that emotion or feeling is bad. We can't separate it from the human experience. But when we identify our core being, our core self as emotions, we get lost and we get tossed around, we get abused. We get used because we can't differentiate between the field of emotion, that's the air we breathe here. That's the frequency we operate in. That's the fiber of our human existence is emotion. So we have to plug into it. We can't avoid it. But when we identify in it, we step into this whirlwind of scenery that completely confuses us to who we are, because we're all over the place believing that we are the movie and we are the enactment and the drama and the charging and the over personalizing of all the events and things and people around us. We don't know the difference between where emotion and feeling starts and where we begin, and that's where we get lost and we completely expose ourselves. We lose our armor and protection of living free of emotion by truly knowing our God-given spirit, our God-given identity and essence. And that's the point that we want to address. So that was a perfect introduction, what Judy read. Thank you. Speaking of change, we really want to examine this game that we've been indoctrinated into to believe that we are our emotions. It's not bad. It's not bad at all, of course. We can express ourselves. We can be human. But we can be fully human and not slave to the erratic nature of our emotions when we allow ourselves a sense of command and mastery over knowing that emotions and feelings are out here in the world that constantly attempt to snare us into walking into them. And myself, our true self, our spirit, which never changes, which doesn't break, which doesn't bend, which doesn't bow, no matter what's going on or who's going on around us, that self, we're in control of that. So that's the walk that we want to get in the season of change and really illuminating the conformity of this world that has us fooled about our core identity and really discerning the two and illuminating and clarifying the two. That's how we get our control back of our minds and our hearts. So I am loving the work from Neville Goddard, because he clarifies to me what a lot of the higher metaphysical teachings have kind of gotten lost from in terms of the day-to-day. He makes very, very clear to me how to operate this frequency of emotion and feeling that we have to deal with. So I'm absolutely loving the simplicity of his teaching. So here's some words from Neville Goddard concerning feeling and emotion. He says you do not need to understand every feeling to release it. Attempting to understanding our feelings often keeps them alive. There is an illusion that emotions must be processed endlessly. You have to process. But processing can turn into dwelling there and staying stuck there. Another dark secret is that people often enjoy their emotions more than they admit. Suffering can feel familiar. Drama can feel meaningful. Letting go of emotions feels like, on some level, letting go of our identity. Some emotions feel like home because we've worn them our whole lives and they feel comfortable, even though they're really, really, really uncomfortable. In some weird way, they feel comfortable. To become emotionally sovereign, you must be willing to abandon familiar pain. Comfort in suffering is still a prison. So I love the way, again, he illuminates the whole field of emotion. I feel now that in practicing this idea that we are not our emotions or our feelings, and really doubling down on the fact that our spirit, our true core identity as creation in flesh, is not our feelings. That it really helps illuminate this lens that we can walk through the day and walk through all of the temptation and the forces that pull on us, that attempt to get us to lose ourselves, that attempt to get us to get lost and to become reactive and hyper emotional in the name of being human. When really what ends up happening is we don't even know where we begin and where feelings and emotions start. So those are the things we really want to examine with some honesty about ourselves, with all of the emotional storm that we've gotten so used to and we've accepted. Like, how's it really served our God-given strength, our power, our control and command of our experience? That's what we want. I think every core conflict that everybody's ever had has come down to power and control. I think that's it. From child to leaders of nations, everything internally and everything externally, without, when it comes down to conflicts, boils down to the seeking and the desire for power and control. That's what it comes. I think universally that is the point of every single conflict we have. So if we can realize that here in this world, the trap is for us to look for a sense of control over things and circumstances, even control over others, and control over how circumstances come out and specifics and outcomes and those things. When we're attempting to control the movie and the scenery around us, attempting to control all of the emotional and feeling forces that come at us all day, when we're attempting to control that, that's where we get lost, because of course we can't. What we can control is our ability to step into it. What we can practice and start to become really, really proficient at is our ability and our strength at discerning feeling and emotion out here in the world that keep this world of appearances and images and temptations and scenery that constantly attempts to get us to look and pay attention to it and give our power to it and energize it. We can absolutely get practiced at controlling that and how much we step into that. And we can still gain a sense of full humanity, because now we have our strength. We know clearly that my power is here. My power is not in giving away my sensibilities and giving away my energy to things around me, no matter what is going on. And again, we can still be human. We can still be more fully human and more fulfilled without having to step into the movie and the constant invitations to give our power and our energy away. Our attention is everything. Michael Beckwith says we don't have, and children don't have, an attention deficit. And I fully believe that all these diagnoses around attention problems are complete BS. I will outwardly say that as an educator for a long time. What we have is an intention deficit. We don't teach children structure about when they get up in the morning that they need to have a clear intention for the day to help their day become smoother and to help their day become more supported and more empowered. And that can be trained and that can be taught. But when there's no structure, when there's no real intention for how we get up and where we direct our attention and our energy, then these things called, attention deficit become real in our world. And so the ability to have the intention to get up every morning and to be very clear that the most important thing, the most important resource and reservoir of power that I have is my attention. And to be able to control emotions and feelings that come at me and attempt me to suck my energy dry, to give it away to things and events and people around me, the small talk that constantly comes at us. We go to work, maybe in our social circle, the small talk that constantly tempts us into diving into, well, did you see that? Did you see what that person did? Well, what do you think about this? Did you see this? Did you see that? What did you think about these small talks that everybody accepts as normal in the world? They drain our energy. They completely suck us dry when we buy into them in an attempt to be nice, in an attempt to be cordial, in an attempt to get along, to play along, as they say. They suck us dry. And so our attention to be able to gain our mind and our heart back and our power and our control back, we lose it because we're so busy playing along. And we're getting played by the game as opposed to learning to play it very well and masterfully. So there's a way, again, that we can reverse this vicious cycle of us constantly surrendering our power to invitations to be powerless, even things that are very socially acceptable and subtle. We can turn that around and we can be very intentional about making the most important thing that we have to do every day is to control the emotion and the feeling temptations that come at us all day, and realizing that we ultimately are in control. Nothing controls us, but we have to be very clear about that and very intentional when we get up in the day, that we don't let our minds and our hearts get lost and get hooked and get sucked into black holes that are constantly coming at us. They were always there, even before technology. They were always there, but now they're coming at ways, and they're coming at children in more ways that are sinister and dark. And we have to be extra buckled down in our intentions, that we don't lose and don't squander our God-given creator energy in things and conversations that really end up spiraling us out of the control of ourselves and not uplifting anything or anybody around us, if we're honest. So those are the things that we want to question. Some of the cracks in our armor that I want to share is just some questions to help clarify the work that we have to do every day within ourselves. What and who makes us angry? Who or what makes us feel guilty and shameful? Who or what makes us get defensive? Who tries to get us to explain ourselves and defend ourselves? That's a big deal, because again, when we can get sucked into whirlwinds that attempt us to try to explain our position and our thinking, when really it's just a matter of gaining our power back, we can not step into those black holes to where we have to spiral out and feel like we have to explain ourselves. It's a very subtle trap in our world where we step into conversations when there's attempts at controlling and manipulating us. When we can get practice at staying grounded and realize, no, my power is here. I control my power. I'm not going to give it away attempting to justify myself when there's nothing to justify, attempting to explain myself away when really this is not about getting anything other than power and control. And when I can get good at discerning and listening and illuminating all these traps that are coming at me to be, when it comes down to surrendering control, then I can walk through the images and the appearances and the interactions with people, with myself, with my own feelings and emotions. And then I can start to keep some distance between the feeling and the emotional world and self and spirit. Creator's energy and Creator's power, when we can discern some distance between feeling, emotion, and true self, then we get our mind and our heart back. And again, the world will witness. But Gonzalo, you're telling me that I should be cold and I should be a robot and walk around numb and not be reactive? Again, the world has fooled us into believing that we have to squander away our energy and our power by somehow being human, and which in the world sense means being reactive and being controlled and being swatted around all over the place by emotional temptation. Did you see that? Did you see that? Did you see that? We've been fooled into believing that that's somehow being human. No, that's being a slave, and we don't have to be that. We can actually gain our power, our mind, and our heart back by learning to discern feeling and emotion over here, power over here. Feeling and emotion out here, we can engage barely just to know where we're putting our energy and where we're putting our power. We do not have to be controlled and manipulated by it. Big difference, big difference. So one of the things that I do with the students in class every day, we take 3 breaks throughout the morning just to reinforce and break up the day and give a little breather. So if you want to follow me, you can sit up nice and tall. And it's not cocky and arrogant to sit up nice and tall like we've been fooled. It's actually a reminder of how much power we have. Our bodies, as Jesus tells in the Course in Miracles, are teaching devices. And unfortunately, we've let the world teach us to be weak and small and reinforce that in our bodies. So we slouch over, we retrain ourselves this idea that I'm not powerful, I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy. And our bodies have trained ourselves to reinforce this false belief in feeling weak and down and not good enough and not powerful. So it's not cocky or arrogant to sit up nice and tall when we remind ourselves that the Creator lives here, that the Creator, the Christ self lives right here. And I'm going to remind myself in our beautiful teaching device to claim that power. So if you would just sit up nice and tall and focus all your attention and all your energy right here, and just breathe into that power center and remind ourselves quietly that I control my power. Nothing controls me. Just breathe right into the center of the heart space and feel your creative power exploding. I control my power and nothing controls me. We do that 3 times a day with the students. Not spiritual language or anything, just plain language. Again, just to reinforce true self. True self over here, feelings and emotions over here. True self here, this is what we claim and build up and energize when we focus here. And we make decisions from here, not in feeling and emotion, from here. Feeling and emotion are there for signposts. They're guideposts. They're indicators of where we're putting our energy and where we're putting our power. Oh, this person really upset me. Oh, this thing from my past really wore me down and it's wearing me down with burdens of guilt and shame. Oh, this event, this thing out here is really wearing me down. And feelings and emotions are not bad, but they're indicators, they're signposts of where we're putting our energy and emotion. They are not commandments. They are not there to order us to jump and to move and to make decisions impulsively and reactively. They are simply there to indicate where we are putting our energy and emotion. They are not our masters. They are there to serve us. And we don't serve them. And we don't bow down to them. We face up to them. We claim our power and realize, thank you, emotion. Thank you, temptation, for reminding me clearly I control my power. Nothing controls us. That's what emotion and feeling is for. So more from Neville Goddard on this idea of emotion and being human. One big thing about being authentic and genuine that I love from him. It is important to understand, Neville Goddard says, that being emotionally unmoved does not mean you suppress the truth. He says, you will begin to see how people confuse emotional expression with authenticity. I'm learning through these teachings the power of silence, that not having to explain yourself and not having to defend yourself when there's nothing to defend. When people want to manipulate feeling and emotion for sakes of control and coercion, we don't have to engage. One of the most powerful things you can do is just be quiet and truly know where our power comes from. not just being quiet while I'm holding my lip to plan my follow-up response, because that would not be helpful, because you're still hooked. You're still locked in there, you're still hooked in that game. But being quiet and just knowing, hey, my power is here. My power is not out here feeling an emotional manipulation land. My power is here. So the power of silence and not dipping into having to explain and defend yourself in a world that's really not made to make sense of anything. When we try to make sense of an insane world, we become more insane. So why dive into that pool of insanity when there's nothing but darkness there? Why dive into explaining insanity when we are just going to get sucked down further into it? There's no point. But when we can discern the difference again between emotion and feeling out here, true self right here. Emotion and feeling, fiber of the world, frequency of the world, very helpful for gaining our sense of power, not helpful when we identify with it. And that's what I'm really big on teaching, helping in plain language to model with my students, with my partners' children, in a way that they can relate to, because the best tool and gift that we can offer to the next generation is to affirm their power. That, as Judy was sharing in second Romans, we do not have to conform to the ways of the world, that we are weak and powerless, and we have to go along by the winds of reactivity and impulsivity and fear. Our Creator did not make us to be conformists in the sense of following the waves and the temptations to be fearful and separate and constantly at war with each other. That was not what our Creator made. But when we can learn this beautiful skill of realizing our true self and spirit is not our emotion and feeling, then we start to get a clear sense of our power and our purpose for why we're here with each other. He goes on to say that authenticity is alignment, not exposure. And this is a big one for me and everyone everywhere that needs to get it. You do not owe the world your emotional turbulence. You owe yourself coherence. Emotional control does not make you less human. It makes you less easy to manipulate and control. And emotional boundaries are the highest form of self-respect. I love that last one. When we can truly, truly appreciate our God-given self, when we can truly appreciate our God-given Creator's presence there, and this takes practice, then we can very easily say, you know what, I'm not going to let anything or anyone cross this threshold here that our Creator has set for me to protect my sense of power and control. I'm not going to let anybody violate that, because I respect myself and I deserve to remain sovereign and free of the constant forces that want to pull me into darkness and manipulation and control. Whether it's an event, a person, our own thoughts. We maintain a firm boundary because we respect ourselves that much. One of the most powerful things we can do with our young people and with each other is to say no with no guilt. To have this clear boundary to know I'm going to protect my realm of emotion and say no simply because I don't feel it's in alignment with my heart and what's best for everybody. And we don't have to explain our no. No. And don't budge from that place. That's one of the most loving things we can do with a big, genuine spirit, is say no and maintain our emotional boundaries. That is beautifully loving. They might not feel that at the time, but that is one of the most loving gestures that we can do, is make it firm no and not have to explain it. So those are some of the things that are becoming very clear to me about how we operate a very volatile, very aggressive world. And so thank you. I really appreciate everybody being here in this new time that I'm very happy about. Acknowledge yourself for taking time to hear this, and remember that everybody, everywhere, no matter what people say, is our people. So thank you. Thank you.